Rupert reached into the top of the wardrobe. His hands groped among the many books and the few items of clothing. When he felt the rough texture of the cloth, he knew he'd found his mark. His fingers traced the hard edges of its contents. Lifting it down, he placed it on the bed, smoothing the quilt around it. He sat carefully on the bed's edge and loosened the cloth to reveal a solid black plastic box, and sat back from it, staring at it in quiet disbelief, the fingers of his left hand twisting the plain gold ring on his right. Rupert picked the box up again and held it to him, unable to comprehend that the brother he loved so much was now reduced to an area smaller than a lunchbox. He had expected something more fitting for his brother's remains, but the weak voice of practicality reminded him that he lived in an age of disposability. The absurdity of it struck him, and might have brought a smile to his lips were it not for the weight that was dragging at his heart. He wished that he could unburden that weight. He felt it physically, a heavy sensation in his chest that drew strength from his arms and legs and caused his breath to come in sharp gasps and leave in long, fractured sighs. He turned the box around until the plastic stopper was facing him, the stone across his brother's tomb. His thoughts drifted in a black and gray kaleidoscope and came to rest on the last conversation he'd had with Ross. He remembered the pain in his brother's voice, unsuccessfully disguised by too much alcohol, and the chilling sound of his despondency when he sighed and said that he didn't think that he was of any use to anyone anymore. "But you mean something to me, and to Neti," Rupert had replied with urgency, but also a small amount of irritation. He had listened, as he always had. He had told Ross what he meant to him. He just wished that he'd never put down the phone, that he'd kept talking to him. If only he'd known that they would never speak again. But how could he have known? How many times had those conversations taken place? That instance, like so many others that had occurred all through their lives, caused Rupert to wonder where personality originated. It couldn't lie in the genes, as some scientists claimed. Ross was his identical twin. If it were in the genes, then Rupert, too, with the help of a whiskey bottle, would have tried to obliterate the pain of living and rammed his car into a tree. Or conversely, Ross also would have chosen the safety of religious life and lost himself in the rituals and self-admonishments in an attempt to suppress the ego. Rupert picked and prized at the plastic stopper that popped open to reveal the contents inside. No angels at the tomb, he thought ruefully. He held the box up closer to his eyes and could just make out the grayness of the ash against the black interior. His hand in the box dropped to his lap. Oh, Ross. The weight was dragging at his heart and constricting his throat, preventing him from breathing. The feeling was made worse by his attempt to stifle the sobs that were straining to be released. His mind raced through an assortment of images of his life with his twin, childhood scenes confused with adult conversations, the face of his brother 1 minute laughing, the next sobbing into Rupert's chest. Gathering himself together, he sat upright. He lifted the box again and, tilting it towards him, dipped 2 fingers tentatively through the opening. The ash felt cool, and some adhered easily to the sweat on his fingertips. He withdrew them and stared at them blankly, his mind having shifted to that empty space known to those in shock. Closing his eyes, he lowered his head to his chest and brought the fingers to his head. Lightly touching the space between his eyebrows, he began to apply the ashen traces of his brother to his forehead in a barely discernible sign of the cross. Remember, man, that thou art dust.